My wife betrayed me. But now she's in ruins. Love or calculation? The autumn rain pelted against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Evan Mitchell's corner office, mirroring the storm brewing inside him. His mouse hovered over the email notification that had just popped up on his screen, a message from their joint account showing another substantial transfer. Third one this month. He wouldn't have thought anything of it if he hadn't accidentally glimpsed Lauren's phone 2 weeks ago. The memory of that moment still made his stomach clench. She'd been in the shower, and her phone had lit up on the kitchen counter. A message preview from someone saved as "Work Project" had flashed across the screen, "Missing you already. Last night was incredible." 5 years of marriage, and in that split second, everything he thought he knew about their life together began to unravel. Evan leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the framed photo on his desk, Lauren and him on their honeymoon in Maui, both laughing as the wind whipped her dark hair across her face. She'd seemed so genuine then, so in love. Had it all been an act? The wife who surprised him with his favorite meals after long days at work, who'd nursed him back to health when he'd caught pneumonia last winter, who still left little love notes in his briefcase, was she really capable of such calculated deception? He pulled up their bank statement again, his jaw tightening as he tracked the pattern of transfers. Small amounts at first, growing steadily larger over the past 6 months. Lauren had always handled their finances, insisting she enjoyed managing the mundane details of their life together. He'd trusted her completely, grateful to have a partner who shouldered that burden. Now that trust felt like a noose around his neck. His phone buzzed, a text from Lauren, "Don't forget, dinner at the Hendersons tonight. Love you." Evan's fingers gripped the phone until his knuckles went white. Every message now felt tainted, each expression of affection another potential lie. He thought about their morning routine, how she'd kissed him goodbye, her hand lingering on his chest as she straightened his tie. Had she been thinking of him, or of her secret lover? Had she already been planning her escape, calculating exactly how much of their life together she could strip away? The rain intensified outside, sheets of water distorting the city skyline. Evan opened his laptop and began a new search, best divorce lawyers in Boston. If Lauren wanted to play games, he'd make sure she understood exactly who she was playing against. But first, he needed proof, irrefutable evidence of both her infidelity and her financial manipulation. This wouldn't be a simple divorce. This would be a reckoning. As lightning split the sky, Evan allowed himself a small, grim smile. Lauren had always said he was too trusting, too naive about people's true nature. Time to show her just how wrong she was about that, too. The Hendersons' dinner party that evening was an exercise in restraint. Lauren played her part perfectly, her hand resting casually on Evan's knee under the table, laughing at all the right moments as their hosts described their recent trip to Tuscany. Evan watched her performance with new eyes, noting how she'd positioned them directly across from Mark Davidson, her department head at the consulting firm. Was he the one she'd been messaging? The way Mark's eyes flickered to Lauren's face a fraction too long when she spoke seemed suspicious now. Lauren's been instrumental in landing the new Phillips account, Mark announced, raising his wine glass in her direction. The whole team's been working late hours, but she's really gone above and beyond. Late hours. Team projects. All those business dinners and weekend workshops. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Evan forced a smile, raising his own glass. "That's my Lauren," he said, watching her face carefully. "Always so dedicated." A slight flush crept up her neck, a tell he'd learned to recognize early in their relationship when she was uncomfortable. But she covered it smoothly, launching into a story about a difficult client that had everyone at the table laughing. Evan barely heard the words. He was too busy noticing how Mark's wedding ring was conspicuously absent, though he distinctly remembered seeing it at their last gathering 2 months ago. Later that night, as they got ready for bed, Lauren was especially affectionate. "Thank you for being so understanding about all the long hours lately," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind as he brushed his teeth. This project is just really important for my career. Evan met her eyes in the mirror, wondering how many other lies she'd told him with that same sincere expression. Whatever you need, honey, he replied, patting her hand. I trust you. The words tasted like ash in his mouth, but Lauren beamed, squeezing him tighter before heading to bed. Evan stayed in the bathroom a moment longer, gripping the edge of the sink until his fingers ached. He'd given her the perfect opportunity to come clean, to show even a shred of remorse or hesitation. Instead, she doubled down on her deception. The next morning, while Lauren was at her Pilates class, Evan made 2 phone calls. The first was to Hamilton Green, a ruthlessly effective divorce attorney known for handling high-profile cases with surgical precision. The second was to Sarah Martinez, a private investigator recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own divorce battle last year. Document everything, Hamilton advised during their consultation that afternoon. Bank statements, phone records, emails, anything that shows a pattern of deception. And don't let her know you're onto her. The element of surprise will be crucial. Sarah was equally direct. I'll need access to her regular haunts, schedule, and any other information you can provide about potential meeting spots. If there's an affair happening, we'll find concrete proof. Evan provided them both with everything he knew, including his suspicions about Mark. As he left their offices, his phone lit up with a text from Lauren, missing you today. Dinner's on me tonight, made reservations at Salvatore's. Your favorite. He texted back a quick, can't wait, complete with a smiling emoji, then forwarded the message to Sarah. The game was on, and Lauren had no idea she'd already lost. Over the next 3 weeks, Sarah's investigation painted a picture more twisted than even Evan's worst suspicions. The affair with Mark Davidson had been going on for nearly 8 months, documented through careful surveillance and time-stamped photos of clandestine meetings at a boutique hotel in Cambridge. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. She's been systematically moving money since before the affair even started, Sarah explained, spreading financial documents across Evan's desk one rainy afternoon. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers once she established a pattern of regular investment contributions that wouldn't raise red flags. Evan studied the trail of transactions, his throat tight. How much? Just over $850,000 so far. She's been incredibly methodical about it. Sarah pulled out another document. The funds have been moving through a series of accounts, eventually landing here, an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The magnitude of Lauren's betrayal was staggering. This wasn't just an affair, it was a calculated long-term strategy to strip him of everything they'd built together. Each loving gesture, every intimate moment over the past year had been part of her cover story while she orchestrated his financial ruin. There's more, Sarah continued, her expression grim. Mark Davidson isn't just her lover, he's been helping her orchestrate this whole thing. His expertise in financial consulting made it easier to hide the money movements. But here's where it gets interesting, he's been skimming from her hidden accounts. Evan leaned forward. What? Mr. Davidson has been taking small percentages of each transfer, about 5% of everything she's hiding away. I don't think Lauren knows. He's been running his own side game, probably planning to disappear with a chunk of the money once she serves you divorce papers. A cold smile spread across Evan's face. Can you prove all of this? Sarah patted her leather briefcase. Every transaction, every meeting, every email they thought was deleted. Hamilton will have everything he needs to destroy them both in court. That evening, Evan watched Lauren prepare dinner in their kitchen, humming softly as she chopped vegetables for a salad. She'd bought him an expensive watch for their anniversary last week, presenting it with tears in her eyes as she talked about how blessed she felt to have him in her life. The platinum band felt like a shackle now. Everything okay, honey? Lauren asked, noticing his intense stare. You seem distracted lately. Just thinking about the future, he replied truthfully. She smiled, the diamond tennis bracelet he'd given her last Christmas glinting on her wrist. I've been thinking about that too. Maybe we should plan a trip soon, just the two of us. Somewhere tropical, like that resort in Bali we talked about. Evan thought about the airline tickets to Hong Kong he'd found in her email, purchased for 3 weeks from now, right after the Phillips account was set to close. One-way tickets. Bali sounds perfect, he said. Let's definitely plan something. His phone buzzed, a message from Hamilton, everything's in place. Ready when you are. Evan watched his wife carefully plate their dinner, adding an artistic drizzle of balsamic reduction just the way he liked it. Lauren had always been meticulous about details. It was one of the things he'd loved most about her. Now it would be her undoing. The following Monday, Lauren arrived at her office to find federal investigators waiting. Anonymous tips about financial irregularities in the Phillips account had triggered an audit. By noon, the entire firm was in chaos. Mark Davidson was seen being escorted out by security, his face ashen. Lauren managed to maintain her composure, even as internal affairs confiscated her laptop and files. She called Evan in tears. It's a nightmare here. They're saying there are problems with some of our major accounts. Mark's been arrested. I don't understand what's happening. That sounds terrible, Evan replied, his voice steady. Do you need me to come get you? No. I need to sort this out. Don't wait up tonight, okay? Evan knew exactly where she was heading, to the private bank where she kept the documents for her hidden accounts. But she was in for another surprise. By the time she arrived, her access had been frozen. Anonymous concerns about money laundering had triggered an international investigation. That evening, Lauren didn't come home. Instead, Evan received an email from her lawyer. She was filing for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and requesting an immediate asset split. The timing wasn't a coincidence, she was trying to secure her claim to their joint assets before the investigation could uncover her theft. But Evan was ready. Hamilton filed their countersuit within the hour, complete with comprehensive evidence of Lauren's infidelity and financial crimes. The documents were simultaneously sent to the federal investigators, Lauren's lawyer, and the board of directors at her firm. The next 48 hours were a cascade of destruction. The FBI expanded their investigation to include both Lauren and Mark. The firm's board terminated them both for cause, canceling all pending bonuses and stock options. The Cayman Islands account was frozen pending an international fraud investigation. Lauren's carefully constructed world crumbled with breathtaking speed. Her lover turned against her first. Mark, facing serious federal charges, rushed to make a deal. He provided investigators with detailed records of every transaction, painting Lauren as the mastermind while minimizing his own role to that of an unwitting accomplice manipulated by a scheming seductress. When Lauren finally returned home 3 days later, she found the locks changed and a security guard waiting with divorce papers. She'd lost access to all joint accounts. Her credit cards had been cancelled. The offshore money was locked in legal limbo. Even her personal accounts were frozen pending the fraud investigation. Please, she begged when Evan finally agreed to meet with her at their lawyer's office. This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. Evan studied her tear-stained face, remembering all the times she'd looked at him with those same pleading eyes while weaving her web of lies. Actually, he said quietly, I think everything is finally being understood perfectly. Lauren's facade cracked. You did this, she whispered. Somehow, you orchestrated all of it. Did I? Evan smiled. That sounds rather calculating. I thought I was the naive one in this marriage. The trusting fool who didn't ask questions when his wife worked late. The idiot who didn't notice money disappearing from his accounts. I was going to pay it all back, Lauren said desperately. It was just insurance. Marriage can be unpredictable. I needed to know I'd be okay if things went wrong. Things like falling in love with Mark. Evan's voice remained soft, but Lauren flinched as if he'd shouted. "How is that going, by the way? Has he called since his deal with the feds?" The blood drained from Lauren's face. In the aftermath of her world imploding, she hadn't even realized that Mark's betrayal was too perfectly timed, too comprehensive to be mere self-preservation. The photos he'd provided investigators, the detailed timeline of her activities, the recorded conversations, he'd been gathering evidence against her for months. "You turned him against me," she whispered. "No, Lauren. You did that yourself when you chose a partner as morally bankrupt as you are. Did you really think he wouldn't have his own exit strategy? That he wouldn't be skimming from the money you stole?" Evan slid a document across the table. "Here's a full accounting of how much he's taken from you. Consider it my parting gift." The divorce proceedings moved swiftly. Lauren's attempts to claim her share of their marital assets crumbled in the face of overwhelming evidence of her crimes. The judge was particularly unmoved by her tears after reviewing the recordings of her planning sessions with Mark, where she'd laughed about how easy it was to manipulate her stupid, trusting husband. Within 6 months, Lauren's comfortable life had been completely dismantled. Her professional reputation was destroyed. No firm would touch her with the federal investigation ongoing. Her assets were frozen. Most of her friends, shocked by the revelations of her double life, had distanced themselves. Even her family struggled to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the calculating woman revealed in court documents. She made one last attempt to appeal to Evan's heart, waiting outside his office one evening in the rain. "I know I hurt you," she said, mascara running down her cheeks. "But we had real love once. All those years together, they meant something. At least part of it was real." Evan studied her for a long moment. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by off-the-rack basics. The perfectly maintained highlights had grown out, showing darker roots. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without her armor of wealth and status. "Maybe it was real," he finally said. "Maybe there was love in the beginning. But you chose to turn it into a transaction. You saw my trust as weakness and decided to exploit it. Everything that's happened, losing your job, your reputation, your friends, your security, those aren't punishments I created. They're the natural consequences of your own choices." He turned to leave, then paused. "You know what the saddest part is? I would have given you anything you wanted if you'd just been honest. I would have supported any dream, backed any venture, taken any risk with you. But you couldn't see that because you were too busy calculating what you could take." Lauren watched him walk away, understanding too late that she'd had something far more valuable than money, a love pure enough to forgive almost anything, if only she'd been worthy of it. Months later, Evan sat in his office, watching another autumn rain pattern his windows. The divorce was final. Lauren's criminal trial was approaching. The money she'd hidden away would eventually be recovered and returned. By any objective measure, his revenge was complete. Yet as he stared at the space where their wedding photo used to sit, he felt no satisfaction. The triumph he'd expected was hollow. He'd won every battle, destroyed her completely, but the victory tasted like ashes. His phone buzzed, a text from a woman he'd recently started dating. She was kind, honest, and completely transparent about her life. She made him laugh. She never gave him reason to doubt. By all accounts, she was everything Lauren wasn't. So why did he find himself checking her phone when she left the room? Why did he feel compelled to verify every story, cross-reference every detail? Why did his stomach clench whenever she was late or unreachable? Lauren had taken more than money from their marriage. She'd stolen something far more precious, his ability to trust without reservation, to love without fear. As he typed a response to his date, Evan wondered if that had been her most perfect revenge after all.